Welcome to the Love Pod, where inspiration, vision, and real connection come alive. Wherever you are, you belong here.
Welcome to the Love Pod, everyone. We are here with a special guest today, Gary Acevedo. I'm your host, Nathaniel. I, I'm really excited to introduce Gary. I happened to meet Gary through his sister on school, and we had a wonderful conversation just the other day. And as I understand it, Gary, you have an amazing background, a serial entrepreneur. I think my daughter's trying to get our attention in the background there. In speaking to you just briefly, on the topic of awakening and also having major breakthroughs, I know you've helped many entrepreneurs have breakthroughs through the awakening and embodiment experience that I'm just lifelong inspired and obsessed about. Everything from you were talking about helping Mark a process that helped Mark Hughes create Herbalife and helps Ron and Joseph bring 12.5 million people out of poverty with microloans, and Bunil save hundreds of premature babies' lives every day. I mean, these are the kind of breakthroughs that we're all looking for, tapping into our genius. So, welcome to the show. I'd love to just ask you to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit more of who you are and what brings you here today.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I discovered many years ago that one of the most profound experiences of my career was I was working with the therapist who helped John Lennon. And during one of his intensives, a lady was having a hard time talking about her big so-called hang-up. And suddenly I realized that what she thought was her biggest hang-up, which was being overly critical, was actually her greatest gift, strength, and talent in disguise. And at that moment, I realized that human beings don't have hangups or shortcomings or dysfunctions. What they have, all of those things are basically, ultimately, hidden great gifts, strengths, and talents.
Mm.
And so, I've basically found out that the worst you can say about most human beings is that we're all very clever at getting in our own way. So I've become very good at helping people get out of their own way. And my secret weapon is what I call limitless loving or unconditional loving
Mm.
or Christ-like love. And because I learned how to design my seminars and retreats in a way that just showers people in everything that's right about them, then it gets people lifting to higher states of being. And in those moments, they have these profound, life-changing experiences where somebody can change in a heartbeat, because that's what happens when you get to those higher states of being. And so, I'm good at showing people how to show up, how to shine, and how to be the gift that they came to be.
Mm. That's so wonderful. Speaks to my heart so much. I Most of my life I've been led by that quest to deeper embody unconditional love, and I know that is the heart of Christ's teachings, and they're so simple, right? He said, through the eyes of a child we
Yeah,
must, and that's the only way to enter into the state of heaven. And
yeah,
I love what you're saying, Gary. And it's, if anything, it's what we need so much more than anything else, to be showered with that and to be reminded the miraculous goodness that we are as human beings. I feel like we've
yeah.
been told a lot of the opposite, probably for other, agendas and reasons to keep us in a certain state. But I feel like it's so refreshing. So what, I mean, I feel like I have a million questions for you.
Yeah.
And yet it's the simplest thing of all. You talk about unconditional love and being showered in that. What does a day look like to you, Gary, living from that state and helping people to attune to that and just to let that in?
Actually, throughout my career, I've learned how to basically in our consciousness, there's two theaters, like the fear-based theater and the love-based theater. And when people have problems, you know, things that don't fit their pictures, which happens for most people, all through the day, I've learned how to, for myself, how to create a list of things that I do first, and then second, and then third, and there's a whole list. And so, like, I've learned over the years how to manage my consciousness so that no matter how terrible the circumstances look, you know, everything from flat tires to no money in the bank, or, you know, financial crises, or just whatever, that I've learned how to keep myself in the do want theater, not the don't want theater, because
Mm,
people don't realize that when they're focused on the circumstances, anything outside of them, that's like trying to like if there was a grease fire on your stove and it got really big and you go to grab the fire extinguisher, instead of putting it on in the kitchen, if you go to the living room and start spraying like crazy,
mm,
you're trying to put the fire out in a realm that the fire doesn't even exist.
mm, mm,
Well, that's how most people deal with problems. They look to the circumstances and spend a lot of effort changing their circumstances, trying to change their circumstances, instead of realizing there's no power in their circumstances. It all is in the inner game,
mm,
their thoughts, their feelings, their behaviors, etc. And so, like when I wrote the book, I put in the book, like, what's the great gift behind overwhelm? Like, people who tend to be after success, they end up working too much, 10, 12 hours a day, and thinking that's why they make a decent income. And it's actually ass backwards. Like, most people, the gift of being an overwhelmer is people who are intelligent and capable, but they don't realize that it's in the wrong direction.
mm,
Like, well, one time I took a millionaire from like a million a year to like 7, 8 million a year in about 9 months. And then I realized, instead of doing my top hourly rate, I should have just taken a percentage of the increase. So I do that once in a while with somebody who's got a great vehicle and they just need to get out of their own way. And then I get a percentage. And I found out that two of the things that really work with those kind of clients is teaching them how to take recess.
mm, mm.
Like, when you're a kid, you take recess 2 or 3 times during your school day,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
15 minutes.
yeah.
Well, the same thing for capable people, high-powered people. If they don't find a way to put the clutch in and get out of their day, get out of the business, get out of their stressors, and then refocus on whatever makes their heart sing.
Mm, mm,
I don't care if it's guitar or video games or spiritual practices, as long as they get out of their day and into something that makes their heart sing.
mm.
I can't believe how just it takes me a while to convince the A types to do this, but when they finally do it, their income goes up.
Who'd have
And the
thought?
other one is making sure that the emotional cups of your family are filled,
Mm,
because people don't realize that your family is one of the greatest gifts to expand your income.
mm,
And most people end up, because they're so busy, they end up sacrificing what matters most, like their family, their well-being, their passions, their health.
yeah, yeah.
So really, it's about learning the difference between doing and being.
Mm,
And I spend a lot of time teaching my students about being, because all the answers are in being instead of trying.
yeah. Yeah.
When you're trying, you're just feeding your own insecurities.
Mm. Mm.
When you're being, you're in the zone, you're in play, you flow, you have revelations, insights, ahas, spiritual guidance, intuition. And so it's really about learning how to relax enough that you can actually be more of what you are already.
Hmm. Hmm.
You're not changing to be like something else. You're changing, you're basically awakening to release all the stuff that is not authentic, all the stuff that is not the truth of who you are.
Mm.
And in that place, you honor your truth. You learn that when you honor your truth, not what other people want, not what other people expect, you've got a satellite dish to God and you're being guided.
Yeah.
When I
So what
wrote the book, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, so well said. There's so much depth there, Gary, and you have a very direct and straightforward way of reminding us. Someone told me once, I have one of my gifts is the ability to see other people's gifts and to articulate what I see. And
Yeah,
someone told me, Nathaniel, I feel like we all have this inner sense of knowing, but you have an ability to articulate it. And I feel like to me, like heaven on earth is when we're all in that state of being and we're all in our authentic gifts and we're all of our satellites are attuned and we're just in that play of life and in the flow. And I really feel like that's when life on earth is really gonna start, so to speak. Like when we really remember our interconnection and also this deep, 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 eternal, infinite connection that we have with our wonderful creator that lives within all of us and within all of life. And it's just the miraculous that's all around us all of the time. So I really appreciate what you said.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Matter of fact, you reminded me of something. You know, I love that about you. I love that about anybody who has those kind of gifts. Those are my favorite kind of people to hang out with. And many years ago, the retreat that we do is called the Awakening. And back in I think '79 when I created it, the word was so weird. Everybody thought it was weird, but now it's everywhere, you
Yeah.
know? And
Funny, eh?
and so I, I really had no idea what a miracle it was going to be when I created it. And it's literally like walking through a door and saying, okay, for these few days that you're going to be here, you're going to get a you're going to get to see what it feels like to actually experience deeply and profoundly a taste of heaven on earth, because that's what it's like. People get so touched, moved, lifted, inspired, blissed out that they often, there's this game we play called the seven levels of awe, because there are times when the space in the room gets so high that people look like deer in the headlights, like they look like, you know?
I know what you
And
mean when all the cellars are exposed.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
People are having a direct experience of themselves in those
that's
moments. Yeah.
right. That's right. And so one time the space at the awakening got so high that literally God stepped into me and Gary moved to the left. And I was doing an initiation and I got to look through God's eyes, and some part of that never left me.
Mm.
And so, like you, in my workshops, when we do like an introductory course and they're getting in these circles and doing what we call the greatest key to influence, which is speaking to one's highest nobility,
Mm.
then I go around to the people, the new people, and I offer them what I call a higher self reading or a soul reading. Because after that experience, I began noticing that I could see the next 4 or 5 years of somebody's life.
Mm. Wow.
And I can't, actually, I learned quickly that I can't tell them what I see 5 years down the road, because then it scares people subconsciously and they end up sabotaging it. But I can
Mm.
tell them what I see for the next round and
Mm.
what they could do for themselves to get where they want to go.
Mm.
So I do those. I do the soul readings in my intro classes, and then if somebody wants more, we do it individually, whatever. But it's really fun because I mean it's such an honor and a privilege to be able to, like you do, see their highest nobility and speak to them about that.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, I feel like there's so much latent gifts, and it's interesting. I mean, in my, I mentioned to you on the phone, it was really my the beginning of my awakening happened in my late teens and my early 20s, and was very saturated period. A lot of things revealed themselves to me, whereas I had spent a lot of time contemplating from a scientific lens. And I do feel like Dr. Joe Dispenza says, science is the modern language of the mystical. And I think, that is one of the beautiful aspects of this current time that we're in, is that we can talk about some of these deeper experiences that people have, spiritual, religious experiences, and we can talk about them in scientific terms. But there's always that one miracle, right? It's like what happened before the Big Bang, and what happened, like why does the woman produce milk? Why is the body so intelligent? We can explain the process, but we can't really explain that loving intelligence. And love is one of those things that we can't really ever articulate enough. I mean, we could make a billion movies about it, and it still doesn't capture the whole power that it is as a creative force in all of life, just as we're talking here, just growing everything and operating all the cells of our bodies. And I feel like it's that state of awe that I was reminded of, but I always knew it when I was a child too. And so when people go to like the awakening, they tap into that, right? That source. And can you maybe give us a few uh, divine breadcrumbs here, Gary? And what can someone who's listening to this do practically now to just maybe take a moment and step into being and just relax a little bit in their life? Because I believe in immersion. I believe in going to spaces where you get out of the normal, but I also feel like there's opportunities where divine is giving us every day to, whether it's our child smiling at us, or we're being invited to, to move and dance, or a flower is appearing, in the springtime. Like there's all these moments. What would you say is a good way of taking those pauses and reminding ourselves to step into being?
Yeah. Well, like I said earlier, I have a list that I
Mm,
learned to do for myself. And then when we do our long-term program, long-term consistent support, we spend all through the program teaching them the different skills, the tools, so
okay.
they can manage their consciousness, so they can get back on track with their game plan and their
Mm,
vision and make it really happen. And some something I love about this work is that it ignites people's emotional and spiritual gifts.
mm,
Like I've had many people who came through who had amazing spiritual gifts, but hadn't really woken them up fully and learned how to put them out to the world.
yeah.
Well, one of my students, Sonia, when we do a course called Magical Realms of the Sacred Self, and when she did that, like her gifts opened up.
Mm.
Then she did the awakening, and her gifts exploded. And she started getting information from all these different galaxies and different things. And she just had her first $1 million year teaching what she's learning from her
Mm,
spiritual gifts.
mm,
And I love that. And it's not just spiritual gifts, it's also emotional gifts. There are people who, I mean, every human being has incredible, unlimited potential.
mhm,
And
mhm.
like I love it when people bring their families to the awakening. I've had people bring their entire family,
Wow.
or like a father and a daughter, or a mother and a son, that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
like, because I've been doing this for so long, like I'll give you one example. Rebecca was my cousin, and she brought her kids, Brandon and Marissa, when they were like 9 and 11. And now Marissa, who was 9, became a family therapist. She just had a TEDx talk, and she brought her daughter who was like 13 or 14 now, to the last awakening. So it was
Beautiful.
like the third generation. And I love watching when kids, when we're doing a breakthrough on someone that age, the thing that my first mentor gave me that I've evolved, you can see all the 50 and 60-year-olds in the room going, wow, what would my life have been
Yeah.
like if I could have got it then instead of
Yeah.
now?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
For sure.
it's fascinating because the first day and a half of the awakening is getting people to feel subconsciously safe, because I found out the greatest tool any presenter has is the safety, the
Mm.
subconscious safety in the room, which creates space.
Mm.
The invisible emotional atmosphere in a room where people get lifted and touched and moved. And it's what makes people lean forward in their chairs, laugh at the jokes, have ahas,
Mm.
revelations. And by the second full day, I get them ready to have a demonstration breakthrough. And then I call on somebody. I like, who wants a breakthrough? Somebody volunteers. Okay, what do you want the breakthrough on? Money, love life, whatever. And within about 20 to 30 minutes, there's not a dry eye in the house.
Mm.
And everyone in that room is crystal clear that that person's life will never be the same. So, other than the tools that we teach them and the experiences that we give them, one of the simplest tools that somebody can give to themselves to starting to learn about how to land in their being, in their higher states of consciousness, is something that I call stillness.
Mm.
Like, I discovered there are four steps. I call it the four steps to travel your soul. And there are four steps people can do. Like I'll tell you the steps, but the truth is, until people really learn how to do them, it's an art and a science. But the
Mm-hmm.
four steps are: you have to first get extremely centered. You have to use your breath to slow down as slow as you can get, because no matter how slow you think you can get, you can go a lot slower. And the next one is look and see, what passion do you want to talk about? And it's like being at a buffet table. You don't just grab the first thing on the table. You got to look at all your different thoughts
Mm.
and see, what passion do I most want to talk about right now?
Mm.
And typically, you have people do this with another person, but you can do it in the mirror, you can do it in the shower, and then you talk about whatever makes your heart sing the most at this particular
Mm.
moment.
Mm.
Then the next thing is, if you do, typically when I'll do this with friends of mine, we end up having ahas and revelations. So if you have an insight, an aha, a revelation, then you speak it out loud.
Mm-hmm.
And the last one is you voice your gratitude to your spiritual source, whatever
Mm.
you consider that to be.
Mm.
But it has to be done out loud.
Yeah.
And then you get centered again.
Yeah.
And so when people get really good at this, they find that no matter what else they're doing, they're always doing this.
Mm.
And by learning how to get extremely centered, for myself, I get to a space that I call complete stillness. It's the absence of any internal trying,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because people don't realize how much their little engine inside is like a gerbil on a spinning wheel. You know what I
Yep.
mean?
Yep.
And so when I get to complete stillness, everything in my environment goes into slow motion.
Mm.
And the slower it goes, the more ecstatic I feel.
Mm.
And one time I asked my friend, I wonder what I could gain if I could master complete stillness. And God literally, like I heard his voice say everything.
Mm, mm.
And so from that moment on, that was a couple of years ago, but from that moment on, every time I go to do these 4 steps to travel your soul, I set my intention that I'm going to learn how to master complete stillness because everything is not just some good stuff. It's like everything.
It's interesting. You remind me very much of what Christ's letters speak to, and he says that spiritual power rises when we find stillness. And the type of meditation that he recommends that we all practice is to enter into the silence and stillness, and that is by far my favorite kind of meditation. I don't typically listen to music or follow any guided meditation. I just go into pure stillness. I often find that listening to body sensation can help focus me there and just really getting present with whatever feeling is happening in my body. But the space that he points us to, and that's where stillness is, it's that mutual equilibrium. It is it's one of the only, well, let me say this in a way, an inspired way. Space to me is so awesome. It's what allows all of this to be. It touches everything, and yet it is so easy to pay no heed to it, to not notice it because it's space, you know. But it is it is the foundation of all of reality. And I feel like, that message from God that it's everything because it literally is what holds everything. And so I really appreciate Gary. I mean, I'm very intrigued. I would love to bring my family to an awakening process. I mean, my little girl is 2 years young, so she's probably a little young for it.
Is that your first child?
Yes, yes.
Oh
It
God, that is so exciting. That
oh
is so
it's,
exciting. And especially the kids today.
oh,
I
she's
mean,
so
a whole
advanced,
new
Gary.
level of human being is coming to the planet.
Yeah, she is far more. I can feel that she's far more advanced than I am. She has a very strong will. And we had a natural home birth. I had the opportunity of catching her, and the level of presence that she had in her eyes in that first moment, it was so palpable. It was such an embodied experience of the miraculous to me. Like I had spoken for years of how we were trillions of cells born from a seed and an egg, like just walking miracles, but actually having that ineffable experience of catching her and just that palpable presence and it's so simple too. It was like to say, "Oh, that's what you look like." And she turned her head and looked right at her mother. No confusion, no discombobulation from being born. She was so present. And I'm very, to me, light. Her name means light, so that is the heart and light of Light Heart Vision is Luciana. But it's what and who she represents. She's not. It's not that she's a separate individual. She's part of us all. She reminds us of the miraculous, and I feel like
Absolutely.
yeah, it's the most miraculous journey being a parent, and it also calls forth all of those things, those aspects that you said. I felt I was a hypersensitive child, and not so much emotionally, probably, but I was very intellectual, but very energetically sensitive. Like if I'd walk into a
Yeah.
house and there was like a TV on, but no sound, I could feel it, like stuff like that. I used to get really intense migraines, so I also grew up in a like emotionally dysfunctional home, so my emotions were often just squashed. So I feel kind of that a lot of my gifts were probably suppressed, and I feel like there's still a lot more that I'm stepping into, and being a parent is calling that forth in me. And certainly, I mean, it's taken me a few decades to even talk about some of my spiritual experiences publicly, but now having a podcast, I've shared all of them in multiple ways, including Christ appearing to me and some of my deeper spiritual experiences while fasting on the land and learning about indigenous ways of being and that connection that we have with Mother Earth. And so I mean, we also we have had several guests on the show in the last month who have talked about this golden Kali Yuga opportunity that we have as a species and this awakening that our species has a heightened, you know, opportunity, I guess is the best way to awaken to these gifts. What would you say to people who are really looking for that? Because there's a lot of gurus out there. There's a lot of like, shiny objects, but that inner state is so important. So I feel like discernment is one of the most important things nowadays. So, Gary, how would you, aside from going to an awakening, which I'm down, what would you say is most important to focus on in these days where there is so much kind of polarity and distractions and things like that?
Well, I'm going to go back to what you said about your little girl because I was lucky that when my boys were born, uh, we knew how to take them through connected breath. As soon
Mm,
as they were born, we put them in a whirlpool bath that was perfectly body temperature,
mm,
everything in the water except for their face, and then I would slow down my breath, and as I slowed down my breath, the baby would like shiver and release all that tension from being born.
mm,
And as that would happen after like 6, 7, 8 times, they would, like you said, they would, it was like a little man was looking through their eyes
mm,
and looking right at us. And and one of the ways I know that a whole new level of being is coming to the planet,
mhm.
like my son when he was 3, we're talking about Jesus. I said, "Do you know who Jesus is?" He goes, "Yeah, I am." I said, "You are?" He says, "I am that I am." Like, did you learn that in church? No. Did you learn that in preschool? They don't teach that in preschool. You know what I mean? And then when he's like 4, he's going across the monkey bars and very nonchalantly he says, "Hey, Dad, you know why I came to Earth?" I said, "No, tell me." He said, "Because Heavenly Father knew I was so powerful, I could teach the world how to get rid of negative spirits."
Mm.
And I mean,
Wow.
I have about a half dozen of those kids in my organization right now who either hear spirits or see spirits or, you know, a whole new level of kids coming
Wow.
through, you know.
Wow.
Okay, now ask me your question again because I've lost it. I want to go back to it.
Yeah, well, it's related to what you just said. It's like we are in a time of great awakening. We have these, lack of better terms, old souls, powerful beings coming through, advanced beings who have cultivated their gifts in multiple dimensions of time, who are coming, from my perspective, you know, to help in the upliftment of human consciousness on our planet,
Yes.
because that is a critical consciousness. And when it's aligned, it's beautiful. It's stewardship, everything in nature flourishes. But when it's misaligned, we get all this, we get, disharmonies, we get
Chaos.
chaos, right? And so I feel like there is and it comes down to belief too. And this is where I think, uh, he talks a lot about belief and how important it is to heal beliefs, because there's a lot of people on this planet right now who, if they are in their dogmatic religious beliefs and they believe in this war against good and evil, and that there's this like fight, and there's almost like a calling forth for this destructive kind of thing. If you believe that strongly in your consciousness, you're going to do that rather than seeing that space, that stillness, that uniting quality of consciousness that exists within all of life. Even in, I would say, in my direct experience with the negative spirits, or those that are pinched off, there's still life in that needs to be released somehow. There's something essential. So what my question was is in terms of discernment, because there is so much opportunity to awaken on one hand, but there's also so much opportunity to be more pulled into the lures of distraction. I mean, you can watch shows now for a lifetime. They're just pumping out more really gross material with it's violent, and it's easy to get your consciousness affected by those things. So how, what's your greatest wisdom to offer someone to really honor their true path on this life, and the reason why they came, like your son so clearly knows at such a young age?
Um, I think that, if people really want to make a difference with the chaos that's on the planet right now, and by the way, the chaos on the planet right now is an indication of the birth that humanity is going through, and it's
Mm,
probably the biggest birth that humanity's ever known. I've seen that coming for 40 years.
mm,
And um, if you want to really make a difference for the for the chaos that's on the planet, then, as you've mentioned before, the greatest gift we have to help with that is fully expressing our limitless love, our unconditional Christ-like love. And so, like as an example, every ounce of love or kindness that you express in the planet, you are literally changing everything in all of the universes forever.
Hmm. Wow.
So, like something I love to do when I'm at a restaurant or wherever, if I see someone like you and your wife sitting with a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, I go up to them and I say, pardon the interruption, but I just want you to know I'm extremely intuitive and I want you to know that that child is very special.
Hmm.
And they all light up. And so, no matter where I am, if I'm at the grocery store,
Hmm.
I will say something not really heavy, but just lighthearted, a compliment, an acknowledgement, whatever,
Yeah.
because I understand that every ounce of love and light that we add to the planet changes everything
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah.
So,
I love that.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
what else are we to do with our time?
Yeah, it's so interesting, Gary. Like I've heard people in my, when I was first beginning my quest and looking, because most of my knowledge, I would say, came from just my own direct experiences, especially in nature. I didn't
Yeah,
read a lot. I loved books. I collected a lot of books, but I would like just kind of energetically be with them. I never like really studied a lot of other systems or anything. And after some of my direct experiences, I remember I was introduced to some of these like new age kind of thinkers and talking about, the angelics and talking about karma, and none of this stuff was really like part of my acumen. But one of the things I was exposed also to channeling at this time too, and one of the men said, that love, like just being in a total state of love was very boring. And I thought, I really questioned that. I said, because to me, my direct experience in nature was like seeing the flowers and seeing the bees coming, and just how they were so like there was this rejoicing happening in nature all of the time. And a few years ago, I was exposed to God's chorus of crickets. I don't know if you've heard that, where they slow down the sound of crickets to the lifespan of a human being. Oh my goodness, Gary, I got to send this to you. I'm going to send it when I send the Christ letters to you, because um, it is the most amazing orchestration of choir, of harmonies and melodies all flowing. There's this just beautiful expression of love and in creation happening. And to the just the very impoverished idea that love, to just be in this love, is boring. I thought, maybe there's something to that, because obviously we create the individuation of consciousness, we create the beliefs of separation through the ego drive and all these things in order to return home. So obviously the journey is of value. I mean, we wouldn't undertake it. Um, it's like Neil Donald Walsh talks about the candle in the sun. I mean, we have to go into the unknown of what we are not to really, I think, to really appreciate. But what you say about planting those seeds of love and how it changes everything forever, like that's just raw power. And that's the kind of thing, like, if you really get that on a cellular level as a human being, and you start realizing like, every single love thing, every single act, whether you're serving, you're a barista and serving coffee with love, in comparison to having no, care for the people that come in, it's such a palpable difference. It transforms, it affects everyone in this space, but also it affects the building itself and the communities and the neighborhood. There's so much power in that. So I really appreciate you bringing that point into the
yeah,
conversation.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah, when we do the awakening, the last day is called the greatest key to manifest your vision. And it's about how the greatest key to manifest your vision is higher purpose.
Mm,
And it takes most of a day because it's an art and a science. But I teach people how if you have your time system and you write down, I got to do this today and that today, your daily tasks are going to be in a context of your greatest current dream or vision.
Mm,
And we even play a game called the Genie game with people to help them realize their dream or vision. And then that dream or vision has to be in a higher context. And then there's beyond the, like a higher context would be like, I'm all about prisoners, or I'm all about children, or I'm all about whatever. But the highest context, as Werner Erhard said, is a context that includes the whole,
mm,
like everyone. Like the way he says it is a world that works for everyone, or a world where everyone wins. And my version of it is heaven on earth.
yeah.
Like you said the other day, you would say heaven on Mother Earth.
Mother
You
Earth
know what I
home.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And when I had Ron and Joseph do the awakening, and they came up to me after that process and said, absolutely our favorite
Mm,
process. And they're the ones that went out and found Muhammad Yunus in India, who discovered you could give families like $5 or $10 loans and they could bring themselves out of poverty and get away from the loan sharks. And so
wow.
they said, we should make this guy global.
Mm,
And that's how they brought 12.5 million people out of poverty. And so,
mm, powerful.
I think with discernment, people need to start learning how to honor their truth, because there is no greater gift to being either happy or successful.
Mm,
Until you can learn to honor your truth, you're like a radio that's in the static, the dial's in the static zone.
mm,
You're in the distractions, you're in all the nonsense that isn't moving you forward. It's just entertaining.
mm,
But once you get your dial on the dial, by honoring your truth, you begin to say, okay, now what shiny thing out there, what workshop, what something can really forward my movement, can help me to heal on the deepest levels so I can realize my full potential. And as long as they're going with whoever they feel can serve them, then it's great. It's all part of the orchestra.
mm. Yeah. So valuable. I mean, right before Christ appeared to me, I was asked this in retrospect, divinely inspired question is what would our world look like if we were all truly in a state of love, doing what we loved, and we all had access to the abundance that is clearly visible in all of nature if you just contemplate one seed that forms a tree and basically produces innumerable seeds and fruits and things um, and what you said about honoring our truth, I feel like that's the key essence of what that question was. It's like when people are truly, like you said, doing what makes their heart sing, you're not doing anything with a heavy heart. I feel like this is part of the beautiful tapestry of humankind is that there are some people who love, I love cleaning spaces and making, I go actually one of my favorite, it might sound a little nuts to some people, but this is how I cleanse my mind. And it was years and years later, where I received my spirit name made sense. But I would go and just pick up the forest. All the limbs that had fallen, I would find the pockets where the earth over time could go, and I would just clean up. And then I started doing it barefoot. And I was really connecting to the electromagnetic field of Mother Earth, and felt my legs and feet getting stronger. And I would have whispers with her and gratitude. And then I would see, moments of, squirrels running by and porcupines meditating up in the trees, watching the sunsets, and just all kinds of little beautiful, miraculous moments that you wouldn't necessarily experience if you didn't make time for those simple things. And and there are some people who love building businesses, and there are some people who love working with their hands and building furniture. And I feel like we've been told this, really it's a lie, that we need to be controlled to do good as human beings. And I feel like it's perpetuated in our, institutionalization of children and being forced into unnatural circumstances where they are around children just their own age and they have to ask to go to the bathroom. They're not given their autonomy, and then they're forced to do things that aren't necessarily part of their what makes their heart sing, whether it's doing an essay or math. And I feel like they would naturally find those things. I mean, there are children on our planet who hate playing the piano because they were forced to play the piano. The piano's got to be one of the most beautiful instruments, one of the newest inventions, such a wonderful instrument. So I think that says a lot in terms of the consciousness of parenting that's unfolding now too. I know there's this new paradigm of parenting where it's like seeing our children as spiritual partners rather than as these things that we're meant to mold and control and try to make them fit into society. But I I couldn't even do that with Luciana, and we're going to homeschool her, of course, because uh, either she would break the model, me putting into her school because she's so strong-willed, or I mean, the saddest thing is they would break her spirit, and I just couldn't ever allow myself to do that. Anyways, I said kind of a lot of things, but you're making me think about the bigger picture in all of this and how each of those little decisions and those seeds is so important to this real flowering of human consciousness because humankind is a beautiful species.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'll share with you a little bit about parenting because I'm an
Please.
amazing father. Um, you know, my older son, I've got two sons, one's 36, one's 15. And when my older son, his mom left while he was still like less than 3 years old,
Hmm.
and I had to raise him. And when he was a teenager, he was what's called a parent's nightmare.
Hmm.
Like him and his hip hop buddies would go and beat up drug dealers and steal their money.
Hmm.
You talk about keeping your angels busy, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Well, today, like just less than a year ago, he got accepted to all seven PhD programs, um, got a full ride, $36,000 stipend. Johns Hopkins University asked him to be a speaker. He's doing phenomenal. But it took every skill that I have to get him on the right track, right?
Hmm.
Thank God for the tools that I learned over the years. So one day I was talking to my younger son. I said, Derek, I'm a much better father to you than I was to Eli. And very wisely, he said, well, what makes you a better father? I thought, man, great question. So I started rattling off what I thought, and I named about 7 or 8 things. And then I thought, this should be a handout in the parenting course. So I put the top 11 things parents can do.
Hmm.
And then one day, while I was just showing it with people, I realized this isn't for just for parents. This is how everybody should treat everybody,
Hmm.
you know?
Beautiful. Hmm.
Yeah.
That's
So,
amazing.
yeah, I'll write it down and maybe I can send you that document because I love sending it to parents.
Yeah, no, yeah, totally receive with grace. I appreciate Gary, you just the amount of wealth of wisdom that you've come and brought together to help people through awakening processes. What what I know you talk about heaven on earth, and it sounds like that's like a North Star for you. I know for me it's also my singular purpose. Um, what is your higher vision of what does that look and feel like heaven on earth? To give
Yeah.
yeah, from your perspective.
Yeah. I know that while I'm on earth, my job is to create as many, like an army of influencers, healers, coaches, speakers, parents, people who are interested in making a difference
Mm,
on the planet, people who want to count, who want to matter, not just, make money.
mhm.
And so that's my role, is to create as many people who want to make a difference, because I know that the more influencers and changers that I can empower and ignite, then that will help heaven on earth to come about. So that's what I live for. And
Yeah.
that's what every conversation is about.
Mm.
Even when me and my buddies are just having some drinks and laughing and talking, and it's always, every conversation is about that. It's about making a difference and heaven on earth. So
I know the feeling, and sometimes I feel like, I'm could be annoying to some of the people that I'm around, because especially, well, who you surround yourself with is so important because there probably are some who feel like that's in the realm of delusion, but I really do believe that wholeheartedly that we can co-create this experience and expression on Mother Earth, and also to remember that she is a living symbiotic being and we are children upon her. Like these lands are living. One of the curious things about humans is how human centric I find the species is. It refers to itself a lot, but it doesn't really, until it is in more natural environments and recognizes, those birds that wake us up and sing the songs that welcome the sun each day because we're fast asleep, and all those squirrels that plant all those trees and hiding their little treasures everywhere, and all these beautiful um, creatures and expressions of life. For one of the perspectives I had while in Indigenous wellness was, this idea of propriety and property being a subtle form of slavery, if you think about it. Because if she's a living being, how can we say that we own parts of her? And I think this is Indigenous peoples understood that, and not that, and yet there is also this. It's not that it's up for grabs for anybody. It's really a matter of stewardship and how we're taking care of her. And I think one of the things you said early in the conversation is the most important part of that is managing our own consciousness. Because you can do all the right actions, but in the back of your, mind, if you're criticizing your neighbor and having judgmental thoughts or self-criticism, well, that is not necessarily um, in alignment with creating heaven on earth. For a lot of people, as you talk about like the gifts of, like, you know, the gifts that are hidden within some of the archetypes and expressions that are there. I think for myself, like I was definitely a high achiever in school. I didn't want to fail. A lot of it was fear driven. And I was always kind of obsessed with this idea of perfection. And I hear a lot of people talking about, perfectionism as this like striving to be perfect. And then I read Don Miguel Ruiz's book, The Voice of Knowledge, and he talks about how that really the truth is that we are all perfect and life is perfect. It's just a matter of harmonizing our beliefs to perceive it as such. And I thought that was such a beautiful remedy for perfection. And it kind of reminds us too, like what you said about being. It isn't so much that we need to try really hard to create heaven on earth. It's just opening and receiving and allowing that showering of love and being that expression on earth that really allows it to just unfold the remembrance of it.
yeah,
Correct me if I'm wrong.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
my favorite quote of all time is at the very end of a Carlos Castaneda book called Tales of Power, where he says, "When I fully understood my love for the earth, it taught me freedom. And
Mm,
freedom is joy, efficiency, and abandon in the face of any odds."
mm,
And
mm. Wow.
I've learned a lot from different people and students about the power of the earth. And I wanted to mention something else, because in the discussion of, you know, like what people can do, like I have finally gotten to the point where I don't ever criticize myself, ever. And I've learned that, when I was young, I was a Gestalt therapist. Fritz Perls created Gestalt therapy. He was kind of the Tony Robbins of his day. And I took Gestalt therapy and I kind of evolved it to be something that the layperson could do. And we find that if you put two chairs facing each other and you talk out loud to yourself, that you get ahas and revelations. It brings things like every good technology from subconscious to conscious. And what I love about this technology is that once you know how to do this technology that I call empowerment dialogue, you never have to make a bad decision for the rest of your life.
Mm.
And I start that workshop by saying, okay, everybody, raise your hand. I want you to think about the very worst decision you ever made. And when all the hands are up, doesn't take a long time either, because they pretty much know. And I say, well, what if there was a technology so you never had to make a bad decision for the rest of your life?
Mm.
Because once you see, in our consciousness, there's two people. There's like a critical parent and a rebellious child.
Mm.
So when the parent is nurturing, the child is spontaneous and creative and innovative.
Mm.
When the parent is critical, the child does one of three things. The child either succumbs,
Mhm.
okay, okay, I know, I said I'd do it, it's my job, okay, 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 I'll do it, right? Succumb. Or at some point, the child gets absolutely rebellious. Like, oh, you want to see me lose weight? Watch this, 5 donuts. You want to see me quit smoking? A whole pack, right? And we all know what that's like. Like we
Yeah.
know what we should do, but there's a huge difference between knowing what you need to do and
Mm.
actually doing it.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that gap is long because there's no unity between the parent in our head and the child in our head.
Mm.
And so after enough of, doing that process for myself, I realized that, oh, the third thing I didn't mention was that after the child gets rebellious, then the child gets paralyzed or
Mm.
stuck.
Mm.
You can stay stuck for a decade easily,
Yeah.
right? And so once I realized that it didn't do me any good to have the parent in my head be critical at all.
Mm.
So I tell my students, do your best to never be critical of yourself. Because really, all you got to do is try to figure out the pain is only asking for a correction, an adjustment, a little to the left, a little to the right. You know, so once you stop being critical of yourself, you stop being critical of other people
Mm.
because who you're talking to every time is yourself. It's a
Mhm.
projection. No matter what's coming out of your mouth, you're always talking to you.
Mm. Yeah. So true.
Yeah, and
So true.
that's one of those principles that sometimes I really hate it because I hate that it's true that I'm always talking to me.
Well, it's interesting. It's a paradox, right, Gary? And I feel like I've really gained more of an appreciation of paradox over the last few years. It was contemplating Zeno's paradox in the forest and this idea of never really reaching an object that had me in time, that had me I think having some of my first really ineffable um, contemplations of light and my own awakenings. And one of my favorite paradoxes, I joke about it. I've had several dreams of doing stand-up comedy. And so if I told you the stories, you'd laugh. I don't have really time to go too much into them, but I've done now 3 times stand-up comedy. And they were kind of traumatic each time I did them. One, I just, and I would have this joke like, I don't know why I'm here. I keep having these dreams. I'm pretty sure creator wants me to be on the stage so everyone can laugh at me. But it's this concept of oneness, that we are one, and yet we are so individually, uniquely distinct from one another. I find it's like this large cosmic joke we're all part of, and yet it is the summation of everything. It's life, we're all in a dance together. And so there needs to be that appreciation, but that's a level of mastery that realizing that everyone truly is an outward expression of something inwardly inside of you is it was one of Buddha's realizations during his enlightenment. I had a similar realization during a deep meditation session, and during an enlightenment intensive I told you about, and recognizing, like, even looking at the stars, every star felt so different and had a unique essence, and yet all part of us, all interconnected, all one. So I mean, I feel like, I would love to just continue having more conversations with you. I really appreciate your presence, Gary, and your refreshing reminders of how important um, the ineffable expression and that showering of love is, and how important it is in the transformation of our world. I that was a lot. Pardon me. I'm
No, no,
really
it's fine.
intrigued. Yeah, yeah. I thank you for the pause. I feel like that is one of the most important things we all need to do is, whether it's, in moments with our loved ones, in moments with ourself, maybe it's in front of a mirror, and just having that appreciation for who we are. And I do feel, you've talked about the awakening of our world and our species. I feel like it's important to express the courageous nature that every single one of us on this planet at this time has taken to go through a time where there is a lot of change, and all things are coming to the surface to be embraced, to be released, all these things that are no longer needed for us to enter into heaven on Mother Earth, heaven on earth. What would you like to remind us of before we close out the show, Gary?
One time I had this beautiful experience where I walked in while we were doing the first time we did connected breath at the awakening retreat, and I heard the sound of true healing. Like when you listen to a group doing connected breath, you can hear every sound that human beings make in one room.
Mm,
After like 20, 30 minutes, everybody's in their own process. Some people are grieving deeply, some people are angry and expressing anger fully, and some people are laughing hysterically, and it's all these sounds. And when I walked in the room, I heard the sound of true healing.
mm,
And I heard it in perspective of how many generations the human family had been
mm,
building one brick on top of another until we could get to this magical moment in our evolution where a few of us did not have to worry about where the next meal was coming from.
mm,
Like people forget how few generations ago in America it was that during the Depression, parents had to give their children away so they wouldn't starve.
mm,
Well, what happened next was kind of strange. I went back to the spirit realm and I saw my whole life in like a 2 hour movie in like that much time.
mm. Wow.
And I remembered, why I picked my mom and my dad, why I picked being short and being a Mexican for the different things that I would go through and how it would help me to fulfill my mission. And during that, I understood what the soul is, that the soul is not your body, your thoughts, your feelings, your past, your memories, any of that. The soul is in simple language, your soul is a message.
Mm,
Another way to say it is that your soul is a unique, individualized intention.
mm,
Like the way that no two cells in your body have the same function.
Mm.
Same with your soul.
Mm.
And so I looked for how to get that across to people. And I found that if your audience will make a list of their favorite music,
Mm.
and then, like, after they got it, then just put one song on a piece of paper and then put the adjectives for the song. And then their favorite book and the adjectives,
Mm.
and their favorite art or music or heroes.
Mm.
If you have adjectives for all these different, things that make your heart sing more than anything else, and then with each one of them say, I am the song, whatever, and my message to the world is one sentence.
Mm.
Or I am the hero, so and so, my adjectives are this, and my message to the world is one sentence, bottom line message.
Mm.
That when you look at the theme of those messages, that's your soul.
Mm.
That's who you are.
That's so profoundly beautiful, Gary. I really appreciate you sharing that with us. I'm gonna make a list. I like that. It's a beautiful
Yeah,
exercise.
it's
Sounds like you
simple
have
exercise.
so many wonderful processes and exercises. I look forward to getting to know you more in your work, Gary. I
Yeah,
know we have to end the show now because I think you have a call and I also
yeah.
have a call. So before we head, how can people connect with you?
They
And
can they can go to my website, which is riseleadershipgroup.com,
okay,
or they can email me to Gary@riselg.com.
okay, that's so wonderful.
Gary@riselg.com.
Thank you so much, Gary.
You
Unless there,
betcha.
unless there's anything else you'd like to share, I'd love to
No,
invite my daughter to come up and say thanks for watching, everyone.
sure. You
Okay.
betcha.
Thank you so much again, Gary, and to all of our listeners out there. Really appreciate all of you. Blessings to all those you touch, and I look forward to seeing the army of what such wonderful influencers continue to grow under your wisdom and guidance, Gary. Thanks for doing what
Thank
you
you.
do, and most importantly,
Betcha.
thanks for being who you are.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you so much.
I love you too. Thank you
I
very
love
much.
you too, brother.
Have a good day.
You too.
For watching.
Didi watching.
Say have a great day.
Have a good day.
I love you.
I love you.
See you soon.
Soon.
Hey, bye. Rachel. Mwah.
Whee!